Jesus James Angleton, the way you spin that story round. Always sharp, just like a tack when you're tracking the price of the dollar and pound. Ow! But drop the narrative, that thing that you inherited. Your history homos chariot just pulled up outside. Scott, William, Patrick on the scene, they're breaking up the subroutine. Something's crackling in your brain, MK Ultra make you go insane. Hey, don't you know we're only on the case for a good time, baby? Took a Rhodes pill, now I'm reading these books for a long time, baby. Honey pots and psyop traps, you can trust the plan until you snap. Slop conspiracy everywhere. History homos clear the air. Close your eyes, what's truth or lie? Hiding in the space between. Reality's a tangled scene. Tune in, you'll know what I mean. Close your eyes, what's truth or lie? Hiding in the space between. Reality's a tangled scene. Tune in, you'll know what I mean. Hey, history homos only on the case for a good time, baby. Took a Rhodes pill, now I'm reading these books for a long time, baby.
And we're live. Welcome back to the show. Joining me once again this week, back on the show, William.
Hello.
And also joining us this week is Titan of podcasting and good friend of the show, Monica Perez.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Hello,
Take two is
Monica.
even better.
Yes, it's lovely. It's lovely to join you. It's very early for me, so don't expect my normal B- level wit to deliver. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to.
we'll see what we get out of me today.
This
So, because
might be a
I'm
little-
just coming off
Yes.
of a big infirm. So,
Oh,
but I'm good now. I think I'm on the mend. So let's talk intellectual stuff though. I'm into it.
okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So what I was saying before was that this book, I read this book
Right.
on the air and I chit chat about it. It's very fun.
Make-
People enjoy it.
Yeah, Makers of the Modern Mind, yes.
Yep, by Thomas Neal. And the idea is the idea is to have a Saturday story time. People listen when they're doing their laundry or whatever. That's the point of it.
Right.
But I I've done a bunch of real schizo ones, and they're great. They're really great. But I wanted to get something a little bit of a palate cleanser. But halfway through the first chapter, and it's like a 26 episode series, I realized the guy's hardcore Catholic. The whole thing's from a Catholic point of view. It's like
Yeah.
immediately starts bashing Luther, bashing Calvin. I'm like, and then just because I was already halfway through the first episode, I just read the whole thing. It was totally informative, and I can look past that stuff. I don't care what perspective.
Well, I think he's right. You know,
Oh,
like
okay, yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's not. He's not wrong in my opinion, but yeah.
but basically,
I don't
the
mind. I
context-
just say this. I don't mind that you get somebody's POV when they're talking about
No.
information either.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
but-
Good.
I think the whole point of well, I don't know because it all depends on what one has personally read before. But I think both Scott and I jumped out at us that wait, this guy is slapping back at Thomas Carlyle's Anglican
right.
version of this.
See, this
Which
is why I need
on-
you guys because I don't
yeah.
know anything. And he
On
sent it to me, Scott, but I didn't realize that's what he sent me yesterday. It was too late.
On heroes
good.
and hero worship is it basically goes through some great figures of all time. He goes right back to the Stone Age kind of thing, doesn't he? With
Yeah.
the first,
Odin.
yeah, right, and through.
But
various
basically,
others.
I think I'll say this. I think Thomas Patrick Neal, the author of this book, doesn't totally disagree with the almost thesis of on heroes and hero worship, which is the idea that great men in history, not even great men, but influential men throughout history, shape the way that the world thinks. And
Yeah.
also another thing is that it's not so much that it's the guy that's great. Maybe Carlyle thought that way, but it's not so much that it's the guy that's great. It's like the idea was coming and a
Yeah.
guy had to step into the shoes to say it. And I think
Yeah,
this
which is
guy
what
and
Neil says,
Carlyle
isn't it, really?
agree
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see there's aspects of Carlyle that I like, but having very recently read this Makers of the Modern Mind book, there's very little in it that to cavil at that I can't think of anything in it that I thought, well, no, he's just taking a leap there based on his Catholic point of view. Obviously, he's selecting figures, and yeah, I don't think he's really shitting on them either. He's
No, not at
he's
all.
acknowledging that their time in history had come, and
Yeah.
they stepped in to fill it.
He points out their flaws, but he doesn't go like,
Yeah.
he sucks, I hate him. Like,
Well, he does a little bit with Luther. He does say
Yeah.
like he was, just self-hating, didn't, became a priest because he made a deal with God to save his life, and then he was kind of bitter about it. I felt, but I wanted to say what I really found interesting about that idea, like this is the time of that idea has come. In the conclusion, the last chapter, he said something I
Great,
thought was
best part of the
interesting.
book, by the way.
Yeah, it was great. And because I'm like, well, he leaves out the schizo part, like the powers that be wanted this, Darwin negates God. Of course, they're going to promote that. But what he said was not only are their ideas not necessarily original, as a matter of fact, they're probably not original. They're all in the zeitgeist. Everybody's
Yeah.
ready. Powers that be want it. But it's the way they articulated it, synthesized it, just so that
Yeah.
people were able to use it. And I think that that's an underrated quality in influencers.
Yeah, and it's like especially with the Darwin thing, that it's like a nice illustration of the dangers of popular science, as it were, in that, like, Darwin was just recycling some stuff that had been published years
His
before.
grandfather.
Yeah, his own grandfather. Yeah,
His
I was
own
gonna say,
grandfather, yeah.
Don't panic. Have a biscuit, mate.
I got I'm drinking tea today, but I'm drinking Catitude.
It's very early. I had to get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
for this. So
We appreciate it.
One
accidentally grabbed my-
toxoplasmosis worm or two, Scott.
What's up?
One toxoplasmosis worm or two
Two.
in your cat
For
tea.
me. Yeah. No meal is complete without cat fur,
a cat
cat
litter.
whiskers,
Yeah.
dander.
I used to have long-haired dachshunds, and they have like that crimped
Oh, yeah.
hair on their ears.
Hair, not fur.
Well, yeah, it's like it looks like a 80s pop star with like crimped fur.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and these blighted things, you get one of those crimped hairs in every meal that you ate, no matter what you did.
Ugh. Boy, it's easy to derail you guys. I always thought it
Yeah.
was me.
No. Well, I'm also, yeah, I'm not batting at 100 right now.
Me neither.
We're just waiting till the magic mind kicks in.
Yeah, that's right. They're not sponsoring, so don't say it.
Oh, sorry. Oh my
No, no,
goodness.
no.
Ever again or just this episode?
Not this episode, but I'll have to bug them. I'll have to bug the Romanian ladies who email me.
I need
They've
some
got,
bang.
they've got you on one line and Grant Amato on the other.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. But so, okay. I just want to just to lay it out though, what the book is like I said, I think William and I both, like he said,
Please
leapt
give
on
me
this
money
immediately.
please give me money so I can send free gummy bears to Scotland and Abrams.
Literally,
I will
though.
show you bosom.
Ooh.
Oh man, I can't wait to hear what Grant's been up to, by the way.
Yeah.
But we're doing a little radio tease here, Monica. Sorry, I don't know if you
Okay.
know about this phenomenon within the industry, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Is just the future episode tease.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
was trying to get my husband, we were on a long ride and I was trying to get him. I was like, I'm going to pick a podcast. So I, of course, went to you guys right away. I think I picked like Napoleon or something that I
Oh, that
thought
one's
he could
anti-Semitic.
deal with.
Yep.
Like 10 minutes in, like all the bullshit in the beginning. And he's like, what is this? I was like, who listens to this? I was like, oh my gosh, I love this show. It's like, yeah, I don't even know what this is about.
I could have picked a better one for you to start out with him, honestly, but
I was gonna ask you, but then he didn't even. He was like, "I thought we were gonna listen to Napoleon," and I'm like, "I don't know. Never mind. Let's."
Well, if you ever at a loss as to which episode to listen to first, it's either got to be the Grant Amato one or the
Well, that was what I wanted. Yeah.
or the Sepoy Rebellion one.
that one's good too. Yeah.
Which one? What? The what?
That's
The-
like episode 10 or something.
Yeah, the Sepoy Rebellion, the Indian Rebellion. It's very funny.
Oh, how do you even spell that? I don't even know.
SEPOY.
Yeah.
But the early ones were too difficult to get through all your fuckings.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I get it.
Fucking
I get it. I absolutely
It's a great.
get it.
I love them all. I love them all. I'm absolutely hooked.
I'm a
I
fan
do
of
my
you too.
laundry to your show. Anyway,
Well,
yeah.
I've more or less stopped swearing now. I still
In your
do
whole
occasionally.
life?
Yeah, more or less.
Wow, that's one thing I really can't. I cannot stop.
I still do it a bit in the pub sometimes if I'm in the mood, and I still do it a bit at work.
It's more powerful when you do it sparingly.
It is, yeah.
Agree with that. But anyway, so just to give a basic overview of what this book is, I think William and I definitely both he said it too, but also glommed onto this idea that it's sort of like a riff, not even an attack necessarily, a riff
Yeah.
on Carlyle's On Heroes and Hero Worship, but it's a little bit more of like a negative one. I think that is fair to say.
Well, he's not happy with the transition from the Renaissance to the modern age. He does not think it was an
Right.
improvement
Right.
as far as the mind goes and the soul, for sure.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing. I'll say this, and right out the gate, he sets out his intentions, which is like, I wanted to give like these are the people that like have changed history as far as like how the human looks back at itself, as the human species look back at itself. And too long has this like system of thought been like trapped in like the intellectual sphere or whatever. I'm setting out to write a book that's palatable to anyone who has like a college reading level, and to that extent
It is easy
absolutely
to read.
succeeds.
And like
Absolutely succeeds in that.
Like
regard.
the last book that we had you on to talk about, Monica, it has these awesome little recaps at the end of each chapter,
Yes.
which really is a good writing style because it helps
Yeah.
solidify the concepts in the reader's mind.
It has a pattern too. Like it has an
Yeah.
introduction. There's like 6 or 7 sections for each one. You can see it's like
Yeah.
childhood influence,
Yep.
setting, and then their contribution, and then the impact.
It kind of recaps the previous chapters at the beginning of each chapter
Yes,
as well.
yes,
Yep.
I love that.
Very well written.
Yes, and one thing that I definitely got from it is how these things were stepping stones. These ideas, they were not like
Yeah.
cumulative. That there was some forward, there was some back, but even in the ones that are kind of we've moved on. I don't know, Descartes or whatever. you couldn't have had the later ones without that one, even if it's reactionary or whatever.
For sure.
So he re-emphasizes that a couple of times.
Yeah, that is right. And oh no, I've completely forgotten what I was going to say. Ignore me.
I'll say this is that so yeah, I can definitely see the through line that he has here, which is like the idea that, yeah, Monica, you said it, but he's sort of like, I'm bummed that this happened, essentially.
Yeah, well, as I was reading through it, this is what I was going to say. As I was reading through it, I'm thinking, okay, I like this guy's sort of line of reasoning and his arguments. And as you go further and further through the book, you're thinking, well, this guy is on. I'm on the same page as this guy, more or less, and I think, my view is that you have to have like a Christian worldview and a Christian framework for society to be in, but I didn't, because this guy was a university professor or something in the 40s. They were already all communists by then, and I thought, it still came as a pleasant surprise when he literally articulates that in the conclusion, which I was like, well, I have been understanding what you've been saying all along.
Yeah. I think for sure I agree with him. I'm like pretty much on the same page as him too, but I think one thing that I think he's a little off on is like he necessarily views, and I use the word necessarily intentionally as in a grammatical sense, he necessarily views the idea that that like this greater understanding of how the mind works it will lead to bad stuff. Whereas, and it's funny because I noticed he didn't do a section on Nietzsche, but he mentions Nietzsche a bunch.
He mentions
too.
him in the conclusion too, like a minor thinker like Nietzsche.
Yeah,
he
I thought
actually
that was
says
weird
that.
too.
I was surprised.
Well, maybe
at
I
that.
could see that he thought of him as a minor thinker because Nietzsche's whole thing is like, let's choose, let's take off all the things that are in the past and go, let's choose to see what is good for us or whatever. And I think like that's probably the coolest thing Nietzsche said, is that like this idea that it's like we can look back at an earlier. He had cringe shit to say. Don't get me wrong, but his whole thing is like let's take from the stuff that worked in the past and go, that's good, let's take that, and that's what I think this guy goes, it's all bad, like we can't grow up, we should just go back to being medieval, like, you know what I mean, which is also based in Red Pill, by the way.
But just to come back on that, so Nietzsche's time hadn't come. He's like I can see why he's not included in the book.
I can too, yeah.
Because it's like that idea of selecting what's the best from the past.
Postmodernism
has not really been. Its time hasn't come. People don't want it, do they?
Well, they just took like the shitty implications of Nietzsche, like in order to be like, yes, we're gonna like break through our human shell. All like the bad stuff I don't want. Like, you know what I mean?
It's like Descartes. This is, by the way, if like me, you're pretty much an ignoramus, it's well worth reading this book because this guy he's read so much stuff. He knows these, what is it, 12 philosophers? Yeah. Or science, whatever they are. And he knows everything about them. He's read everything about them, everything. It's
a privilege,
all
he did this for us.
And all that. And he's condensed it into like a 250-page book or something.
Yeah, 30 pages for each one.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's great. I read his biography, his autobiography. It's like 1 page, and he said these were like everything he writes. He bases on lectures. He said he wants people to understand it. He writes for the reader, not for the writing.
Yeah, and that's why he reminded us of Carlyle, because Carlyle didn't actually write anything. He just gave lectures and other people wrote it down.
Similar. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Yeah.
People worked it up from his lecture notes. Yeah.
But he knows all this stuff, and you could never see. That's why I can't really critique any of it, because I could never know everything that he knows about any one of these guys. So I kind of like, it's a pot boiler, but you absolutely just have to trust him because you're not able to like I could never dig into any of these and really get it, because
No, you
plus he
couldn't fact
brings
check
his
him, could you?
philosophy and he brings his thinking, like his 30, 40, 50 years of this type of thought
Yeah.
and the context and his point of view and history itself. So
I mean, it does show like there's some value, at least if a professor's a guy like that, he's a great value to because he's literally doing the work for you. And AI wouldn't come up with that.
no, and AI can't have a point of view.
No,
We'll
when you tell
you
it,
its point
if
of
you
view.
ask it a question and then you go, no, I don't agree with that, and tell it why. I go, oh yeah, well you're right about that. But so like, what was the point in
wanna know
asking you in the
something?
first place?
I
What?
literally pulled up an AI model in order to say, I asked it, hey, could you just break down the chapters in order so I could just scroll through it and be like, okay,
Yeah.
first chapter, introduction, second chapter, Luther. And then so we can keep going. But
Right.
you're right. I will say this is that the AI just echoes what he said. AI
Yeah.
does not have a point of view. AI just goes, this is what Thomas Patrick Neal thinks.
Yeah.
Like, so that's why I think it's actually a useful tool, is because it
It
doesn't.
is handy for that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it can sort of encapsulate what a real
As
guy
long as it
thought.
says that. But when you do it without asking for a specific thing, it'll aggregate stuff. It'll pull stuff without, I think, without making it, maybe not, but without making it crystal clear that all they're doing is regurgitating a different point of view. Like it
Well, I'm
says
using a
stuff
specific
factually. Yeah,
scholarly
that's good.
AI right now.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Not to plug, because I don't. It's Google who made this, but
Oh, really?
there's a pretty cool Google tool called Notebook LM where you just put, like, I took the PDF of the book.
Cool. Wow.
I took the PDF of the book and I put it into it, like you drag it into the window, and then it only pulls from just that, only the stuff
Right.
you put into it. So it's kind of cool. I made like a master list of all of the JFK assassination books I have.
Nice.
You just punch it in, like, what was Kerry Thornley doing, and blah, blah, blah. And it goes, bang, there you go. And here's the page
Wow.
and chapter that it's from.
So this is another book just that's similar, a real pot boiler. This really easy to read, given its subject matter. The Story of Philosophy by Will Durant.
Right.
He was another one who was writing for like coal miners or whatever coming home from work at night. And of course, it's the
Right.
absolute highest level. Like this could be college level now, but then it was
Yeah.
the everyday, the everyman's book.
A society in which Ayn Rand books were bestsellers.
Yeah. And
That era.
Yeah.
Well, like Tolkien books were set at school. They were
Yeah.
Oh,
Good
I
for
see what
kids.
you're saying. I don't even think Ayn Rand
Yeah.
is that sophisticated.
No, I don't either.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I just mean, like, it's a wordy fucking book, and people
Yeah,
bought
yeah,
it, like,
yeah,
bought it
yeah.
en masse.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you didn't have TV, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got what would you rather have, Scott? A TV or a sports coat and a pipe
Why not both?
and and a wingback armchair?
No, I'll take the chair. Yeah, it sounds good. I
Shiny brown shoes.
Well, I don't know. Let's not get crazy.
A gentleman
here.
never wears brown to town. Brown is for the country.
Yeah. That's all right. I'm always in the country.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a city
cool.
mouse.
I might be popping in to your neck of the woods there.
All right. Well, I'll take you around some of our Norman churches.
Beginning, cool. Oh, that'd be awesome.
That
The
is
beginning of
cool.
July,
Yeah.
if that wouldn't be a burden to you. And I won't stay over, so you don't have to give me a place. I know that's your culture.
Yeah.
It's true. So again,
It's a very anti-vampire culture over there,
Yeah.
because they don't want to invite you in. But yeah, no. What was I gonna say is, so okay, yeah, I will say this, and I think William was kind of nipping at this a second ago. Is like, I knew these people's names, not all of them. I knew a bit about Luther and Freud and stuff.
Calvin.
Calvin. I actually know Calvin. I learned mostly from this. I didn't know much
Oh,
about Calvin.
wow.
I only knew what his followers were talking about, because I was learning all about the colonial Massachusetts and stuff. And like they're 100 years out from Calvin, so things changed between then. I didn't know what the hell was going on with Calvin himself, but I'm more speaking of like Rousseau, Descartes. I think therefore I am is Descartes' like thing.
Yeah, yep.
But
Yeah,
it's
but
like
that's just
beyond
that's just
that.
his, what I learned
Yeah.
about it. I knew Descartes. I think therefore I am before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize was all that was just his starting point for all this
Yes.
bilge that he dreamt up. and
Yeah.
as this author points out, I tend to agree with him. Yeah, that was a stupid thing to do.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just negated everything that wasn't thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, basically
we've misinterpreted it to make it make sense.
I mean, that's a good point, because I was just gonna say. So yeah, when you grow up hearing Descartes is the guy who said, "I think, therefore I am," it's like, okay, well that makes sense. I can understand my existence because I can consciously ponder it. But it's like,
I know I'm here.
No. You missed the point. This is what Descartes would be like. Listen, you dumb people. What the point of all of it is that there's nothing outside of this.
And I hate that stuff. Like, I absolutely hate that stuff. There is a fucking table here. If I stub my toe on it, I will feel pain. I absolutely don't need to think about what it would be like if that were really not true. My perception's wrong. What a waste of time.
Well, I was like, if I met Rene Descartes, I'd punch him right in the nose and say, "Are you going to call the cops? Did that really happen?" No, well, you don't, because these people don't believe it themselves.
Yeah, right.
They can't because it's bullshit.
Yeah. But how about Rousseau? Rousseau is a piece of work.
I think this book did a great job about Rousseau.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, well,
totally married like a retarded woman, gave the babies to the foundling home.
Oh yeah, God.
What a scuzz! And he just, was just like
Spirit
living on
of the
people's
French Revolution.
couches.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I just feel like I'm watching some like midnight cowboy down and out, like, just couch surfing.
And how many of these guys came from Geneva, which is where Luther was from?
Mm-hmm.
And how Luther, how Geneva
and it's where a lot of banks are, not NFN.
Yeah, I mean, that goes to the schizo stuff where like this was a push, not a pull.
Yeah, I mean, I see both sides of it. I think I see the fact that it was definitely grass. All this stuff, the bad stuff was grass. Here's the thing, like, and I think the author here is pretty fair with going like, he was right about this.
Yeah.
Plenty of times, even the guys he hates, even Luther, like, where I think he even acknowledges, like, listen, indulgences was pretty rich.
Yeah. And they were reforming, but that's what he said. Like, they were reforming and they should have. But he points out what a lot of people don't understand. The wars of the Reformation and all the church and state stuff, that happened because of Luther. Like, I've always felt that our sense of liberty and individualism and those rights were, maybe I'm completely wrong, but I got the hunch that it was a function of there being competition for your loyalty, for your tithe versus tax. Yeah, and once it got absorbed by the kings themselves, there was nobody, you had no power. It's like 401ks. Once it used to be Vanguard had all the pension funds, and you're like, well, at least the smart guys are on my side. Now we're the victim. I mean, I'm not against the liberty of a 401k, but now you're the victim of the 401k because everybody's on the top getting to rape you, and there's nobody on your side pushing back.
Yeah, for sure. But again, it's the other side of it is like, did we want to live in the society where you don't have personhood? Like, that's the other side of it. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. It does sort of leap off like that idea of there being like a sovereign human being who chooses where his loyalty lies between the state or the church or whatever. It does come from Luther. And like, do we want to live in the world? Do we want to live in the world where there's no conception? Like, where I always, this is my favorite thing about ancient Rome. Not favorite thing. One of my most interesting things about ancient Rome is that they didn't have the idea of an individual yet. They had a spirit called genius, which was for your family. Your family had a collective genius. And when you did something clever, that means you were invoking your family's genius.
Sounds like the Money Kings.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Cool it.
But my point is that like, you see this very slow iceberg like progression from the fact that you're not only a person in Roman times, you're not only an individual person, you're only a cog in your family, essentially. And then your family is only a cog within your nation or whatever the hell you want to break that into next. And then so then, hundreds and hundreds of years go by. Jesus has a big impact on this, by the way, in my opinion. The whole idea of like choosing to be saved or whatever, and that's an individual choice, essentially. So that was a big step in the direction that we're talking, but eventually it will end up and this is what I just reread the Carlisle section on Luther. He was saying, like, listen, like, what was going on then wasn't cool. Everyone was like, not everyone, but a lot of people were unhappy with how things were. And then what followed, maybe he's making a ends justify the means argument. You can make that aspersion if you wanted or whatever. But he's like, we needed this step, as brutal as the mess of the Reformation Wars was. We needed that step in order to have people like the people that Thomas Patrick Neal doesn't hate so much, like Newton. Newton, or like somebody. You needed all that stuff to get there, because otherwise,
I don't know. Like I get that. I mean, very simplistically, I understand that the idea of empiricism and actual real science, which is not a religion, it's just an activity by which you can verify phenomena and separate it from side effects or whatever.
Systematize phenomena.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's valid, and he does recognize that. But what are you saying? Are you saying that Luther, excuse me, contributed to the idea of individualism? Because I'm kind of saying the opposite, but I'm happy to be corrected.
Well,
once you got absorbed into the nation state, then you're more of the gayus or whatever.
I think, but I mean, that's a matter. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to say. I've never been back there, to be fair, but I gotta say, like, I just feel like that was where you find out. I mean, the things that came later, they wouldn't have happened though. Like, you know what I mean? There's things where there wouldn't have been classical liberalism.
Oh yes, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, there wouldn't be like classical in China, liberalism. Yeah. They say that China,
they never had they never had a Reformation.
Because they suppressed it on purpose.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
And they were smarter. So they could have done it. They have higher IQs. They could have done science. Oh, you don't think so? You don't believe that stuff?
They can read that weird writing.
Yeah, that's I can too now.
Expand your brain. Really?
Some of it. But no, I was just gonna say, I don't think the whole IQ thing, just who ends up on top, just seems phony baloney a lot of times.
Okay, yeah. And actually, I've discovered that, like, I get score high on those standardized tests, but if I talk to people who are like good at directions or artistic or whatever, they're obviously functioning at a very high, much higher than I am.
There's different kinds of intelligence.
There really, really is. And really those tests are just like where is your cog?
Yeah. And speaking specifically, and this is not me being racist against Chinese people, by the way, I genuinely mean this. I think they're cool, actually. And me and William went through a real phase of loving China for a minute. Wow. A few episodes.
Well, you can understand why they're pissed.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
100%.
But they don't value human life the way that Westerners do. They just don't. Like, they have like a non-Christian yeah, exactly. And not just that, but like they
yes, I understand.
kill their children like when they don't get the right gender, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like they don't have like
a lot of people here kill their children.
Yeah,
true that.
I mean, but they were taught
a different cultural hegemony took over to make that happen. But I was just gonna say, but my point is that like, and by the way, a lot of people say this is like the Gerard like take, by the way, but like the idea, like the entire Western morality is based around Jesus essentially, and that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
they don't have it there.
Yes.
It's funny we should be talking about this because in Little Murdina's homeschool group, we've been doing ancient history, and it's a Christian group, so
yeah.
Obviously, as you get to all this Roman Civil War and Cleopatra stuff, you're like, well, in the syllabus we're doing, it's like all this turmoil and strife was going on, and the state, the sort of effective state and imperial government and what have you had been invented, and it was getting a bit too big for its boots. It was causing trouble. So then God sent His only Son, Jesus Christ, into the world to redeem the world, and that sort of that's going back another stage before Luther, isn't it? Whereas
Yeah.
the state was kind of everything then, and then Christianity took over and completely changed the world.
Yes.
I've always interpreted that timing as being it was the first opportunity to reach the entire world.
Yeah, yeah, because of the
I
Romans.
think
Because
so,
all
too, yeah.
roads lead to Rome, and
Yeah.
that was the way to redeem everybody,
Yeah,
give everybody a fair shot.
It was the first time where there was like an international network of people moving
But
around.
here's the thing. So before, there's really something. I have this experience. I don't know about you guys. I can only speak from the Catholic point of view. But when I go to church, every church I've ever gone to has been highly multicultural. I don't know why, but a lot of immigrants, I guess, Catholic. I don't
Yeah.
know. But there's a common goal, value system, whatever. There's a desire to help each other, and there are like requirements to like you're raised that you have to go out of your way to look for opportunities to help people, whatever. And they call it the universal church. There's some universality about that makes you less vulnerable to the propaganda, to state coercion, to all that puts you outside. And I think it's a good thing to have that balance and to have the people outside of it. Yes, they had a grip on your mind, and the question of the existence of God wasn't even something you could think, and they made you tithe. But but I think like my idea, I basically dislike every pope for various reasons. But
I think the new
the
one seems
church is the
cool.
people. Huh? What?
I think the new guy seems cool.
I don't, I've got a few reasons I don't like him.
I
but
haven't looked into it deeply. He just seems chill. I don't know.
He
He seems like
thinks
a nice guy.
he made a very false and damaging statement about Ukraine, that it was purely an imperial endeavor on the part of Russia. He had it out with J.D. Vance. They were talking about the Order Amoris, which I didn't even know what it was. But what it is Jesus's two commandments. God is first, and then your neighbor, and then yourself. And neither of them mentioned God, and they're back and forth. And I'm like, this is not a real.
Yeah. Well, J.D. Vance, I wasn't expecting a theological
Well, no, he's
clinic.
awful. He's a fake. Yeah, that I have no faith in his authenticity as a convert. But I just feel like when you see that, the Pope is of the world. You know that he's tweeting at J.D. Vance about immigration. I mean, that's not.
Anyone
leadership.
tweeting, anyone who's tweeting isn't infallible.
So anyway, so what I was saying is just like as this competitive thing, as being part of a different group, there is something very rich about that. But yes, at the same time, if the church was the bastion of the intellect, like China, they don't focus on the science stuff because they're not of the world. And and if you really spend all of your effort, like my parents did, they were totally poor because they spent every waking moment thinking about salvation and pursuing it.
Righteous.
So I agree with you. I'm not trying to prop up.
No,
my
no.
I'm just saying you don't make a lot of money that way, and you don't go into scientific endeavors. They hated art. They were like, people put money into art when there are people starving. The space program, they're like, people starving. This is outrageous.
I mean,
blah,
they're
blah,
right
blah.
about that. They're just right.
Yeah, they're
about
right. But I'm just saying art and science is something they eschewed because it was a distraction from the mission.
that.
So I'm talking about it, you're right, 100%.
Well, I was just gonna say though, I think it just doesn't have to be all black and white. Like I think the book does a pretty good job of, like, again, maybe the Luther chapter is not a great example because
And it starts with that. I was like, oh shit.
But most of the other guys, there's a thing in each chapter where he's like totally right about this, and it's all stuff that I usually agreed with too, like maybe not Calvin either, but again, like I
didn't know anything about Calvin before, and I was shocked.
I didn't either. I was
Catholics
shocked by
do
him
not
too.
like Calvin. That's why probably the only one I knew anything about.
He was.
I didn't even know he was French.
Oh, I thought he was Swiss.
black.
I still don't know.
Shit.
But an interesting thing in that chapter, I think it was, as I was reading aloud, I was like, oh yeah, like the only place that isn't like this is Italy. And the next paragraph is like the only place that did not go along with Calvin was Italy. And they're still just sitting around drinking wine, watching the world go by. And I'm like,
Yeah.
based.
True that. Yeah. Yeah. Shit. We got predestination. Ain't no reason to worry about nothing.
I hate that too. That's like the worst. By faith alone.
Well, I think, you were asking earlier, Monica, whether you think it's a push or a pull. But I think the thing is the people, whatever the real power in the world is, it does wait for these ideas to come along. I don't think it has to have like just made them up itself. It like gets behind things and corrupts things that are already coming.
I think of it as like many are called, but few are chosen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they'll gather around them everything. It's from that. That's not from, but it's consistent with the book Conjuring Hitler. I don't know if you guys read that or talked to Guido Preparata, but
No.
he talks about, it reminds me of that scene in Life of Brian, which really I shouldn't watch because it's so blasphemous, but where there's like a bunch of guys on the soapboxes saying a bunch of stuff like, stupid things that worship whatever.
That seems historically accurate, though.
Probably.
Isn't it?
And
Yeah.
one of them is Jesus, and and that, or Brian, and that arises, and they kind of say the same thing about Hitler. There's a lot of disgruntlement. There was the culture of
There was the gay guy.
politics of cultural despair, and they wanted the one who would not disrupt the money flows.
Yeah.
So they would destroy Germany, but not the money, which is exactly what happened. Maybe he backed into that idea. But anyway, so many were called, basically, or many were there. And then you can just choose among the ones that look like they have the charisma is another thing that you look for.
Exactly. It's like Darwin's ideas were old.
Yeah,
he
they
was
were
just
his
a guy.
dads and the people before them.
But and then also, he's saying about we touched on the empirical method earlier on, empirical science, and yeah, sure, that's the theory of it. But even at it had sort of tendency to replace religion at its outset, and which is why the guys who were behind it were at pains to sort of espouse their Christian faith, to say no, it's not about this.
Many of them, yeah.
But regardless of that, it goes. It's what people do with it. It's like, look at the Piltdown Man. We did an episode on that.
Yeah.
And that came off Darwin publishes his thing. Straight away people start finding stuff that fits in with Darwin, because to them that's replacing their religion, whether they know it or not.
Right.
And so they're like basically faking relics.
Yeah, that Tyler guy was like basically like, let's just take Darwin and apply it to the church. Basically, his entire like shtick basically was like, let's like, this is clearly such an all-encompassing theory. I mean, it's very in the same vein as Marx, by the way. Marx very much considered himself a contemporary of Darwin, and also was like, okay, we got the evolutionary concept down. Let's apply it to other things. So Marx being economics, and Teilhard de Chardin there, he was God, I guess. So his for those not familiar with the novel series Hyperion, Teilhard's entire system of thought was the idea that we're evolving ourselves into God someday in the undetermined future, which is like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what the hell are you talking about? It's weird. It's a weird thing, and he was excommunicated for it, for the record.
Good.
Well, there are other parallels. Don't the Mormons think you're going to a planet, and the transhumanists and upload your consciousness? So he has his place.
Yeah, well, the Mormon thing, the secret behind that is that it's all Freemason stuff.
Well, all these things are. I mean, it sort of struck me while reading about. I knew a little bit about Luther and nothing about Calvin. Been reading about that, and then with what I know about Mormons and other things, all these kind of reformed religions, if you want to call them, reformed versions of sort of crypto Christianity, like ways of excusing acting Jewish.
Yes.
They all hark back to the Old Testament.
Yeah. Specifically Mormons. Yeah.
Yeah. But even that, like, you can say, he even says it in the book that Calvin was much more. All his precepts were from the
Old Testament,
from the Ten Commandments, and none of them were from the Sermon on the Mount.
Well, I've told you that.
Yeah.
Have I not mentioned to you that one of the things I've heard about the popularity of evangelicism here, or is that, or why they like Israel, is that you get to skip Catholicism. If you reach back, they don't like the idea that Catholicism has any claim to being foundational.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And also, just like, here's the other thing, which I think is the reason why evangelicalism, or not evangelicalism, but like the idea that people want to reach, I don't want to dispersions, but my point is,
no, I didn't mean to say that. I don't know what the right word is.
I'll say this, is that I see why a lot of people go, ooh, Old Testament, I like that, because they act shitty in it.
Yeah,
they're assholes.
There's
in it.
certainly I like you. I like that. I'm going to take that.
They're mean in it. They didn't get the whole picture yet.
Yeah.
But it amounts to saying, because the Catholic and Orthodoxy as well had done such a good job of Christianizing the whole world, more or less, that they had to fit this. You know, if somebody came up with a way of still convincing yourself that you're Christian whilst acting all Old Testamenty, then that suited the powers that be. And so they like, is it a push or a pull? Well, they find someone who's got a good argument for that, and they pull them.
And people would be inclined. This is a thing, I think, and I know it. I'm really starting to turn into my parents, I guess, if I think this way, but that Catholicism has a lot of rules, and when you're young, you can't have premarital sex, you can't use birth control, you can't get a divorce. Like, these are things that are really hard to live with, especially in modern society. I mean, it's a back and forth. Like, these things have grown up together. It's impossible to live with because society has made it so, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's really almost impossible for a young person. So you have to reject it. You reject it as being true, even though it's those moral strictures, whether they're based on, divine right or something or not, are actually good. Like, they're actually make sense. But I feel like because it's so hard to live that way, and the powers that be make it hard to live that way with their influence, you can't. It's a natural. It's both. It's the people and the powers that be, and as interacting over time, I think.
And I do think that I do really believe that there's a global power, which it isn't just Israel. I think Israel is like a
forward
tool.
Operating base.
Yeah, it's a tool, but it is international capital, is what it is.
Yeah, it's banks. It's money.
And
he calls it absentee capitalism.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So whatever that is, and it suits that for some people to blame it on Jews and some people to blame it on Freemasons or whatever. But these are all
Jesuits,
whatever. It's all like, you could get rid of those groups. It wouldn't make and while you've got usury being practiced and this consumerism and all that kind of crap, it doesn't make any difference because the money, it's the money power. Who used to call it the money power?
Oh yeah. It's in Secret Origins of World War I.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I remember that too distinctly.
It's the money power, and and it isn't money because we don't even have real money anymore, but they have.
If they have it,
yeah.
But some evidence for this, because like I'm an easygoing kind of guy, but if somebody starts screwing me over, I get belligerent pretty quick, and I stay that way. And so here's my question. If it's not all, if everything isn't fake, how come, okay, we're having this trade war with China, say. China could just say, okay, the Chinese government could say, no one's allowed to export anything for a month. The Western world would be finished.
Yeah.
Right? And that's all they have to do to win.
Well, you know what all we'd have to do is to stop policing the Pacific with our Navy.
Yeah. And all the Russians have to do to win is say, all right, we're not selling any oil for a month.
Right.
Yeah.
Where that?
So that's why we have a world government, because we're inextricable from each other. It's a de facto world government.
Yeah. There's no way. If Russia was serious, if Russia had serious like imperial ambitions, they'd just go, okay, we're cutting the oil off for a month.
Yeah, but that's the thing about Hitler. They don't, none of the stuff that we're seeing affects the money flows. And I don't want to interrupt you, but I had two comments on what you were saying.
No, go ahead. I'll finish.
Okay. So first of all, the thing about Israel, Netanyahu, I believe, lost 3 elections. So I was saying, like, he's being propped up from outside. Why? He must have a purpose. And then this whole thing happened. So
He's the
to me,
scapegoat.
that's, or a tool, and he's highly compromised. Like, he's being, on trial and stuff. Like, this is your guy. But he's not the Israelis guy. Like, I don't know how it works over there, but I know that they, to the extent
I know a little bit about it.
Yeah, somehow those elections, he was not winning them.
Yeah.
It's that they have a parliamentary system there that's like actually shifts around, as opposed to say in UK or something, where like he's able to get the ultra orthodox guys on board because he's a hard ass against the Palestinians, essentially.
And he can form a government,
but they don't like him. That's the thing. They still don't like him because he's a liberal in his heart. He's not. He's a liberal in like the 1900s.
Right. He's a libertine.
Yeah, but that's why they keep putting him in, because he'll do the evil thing that the ultra orthodox guys want to do.
But
which
he's
is
barely.
Expel all of them.
He's forming a government beyond. So the democratic process would make you think that one of the guys who got the majority would be forming the government, but they couldn't. When it got to that level, the higher level, the parliamentary level, those other guys had to concede to him, even though he was not the people's choice, because for probably the kind of political reasons you're talking about, he was the only one they would permit to form a government. But that is not,
what are you going to do?
It's not democratic.
Oh, wow. I guess I could steal all the soda cans from
I win the
Prime
election.
Minister's office.
But he didn't win the election. Anyway, so
I win the election already, and still I get no respect.
So I'm just saying clearly, okay, so you're saying it's not an outside thing. It's that.
I think there is it's not outside or inside. I just think what's going to happen is he's been chosen to be the villain of the killing all the Palestinians thing.
And he's happy to do it because he's a bad guy and he was on trial and he was getting pushed out. So yeah, he's your perfect guy. Yeah. So yeah, maybe it's internal. It seems external to me. And then I have one more thing. Go ahead.
So that's like asking, do the corporations run the government, or does the government run the corporations?
Bingo. Yeah.
It's both.
Yeah. It's a continuum, the corpo-governmental continuum. So the other thing I was going to say is, when you were saying like they have money, we don't have money, they have money. I don't think people realize that Keynes, his concept of sticky wages, justified money printing, inflationary money printing, so that they could absorb, big T, like whoever, has the lead on
the Federal Reserve,
asset holders, or the corporations, the asset holders, money guys, whatever, so that they could absorb absolutely all of the productivity of labor improvements by inflating your wages away. And that happened to me once. I had a cleaning lady who, like, I don't, for some reason, I agreed to an exorbitant wage. And I was like, oh, I'll just wait until it's not exorbitant anymore, because inflation will catch up. I don't have to say I can't. I didn't have to fire her or anything. No, she quit. She kept asking for raises. I was like, what the hell? Because she was savvy. But most people don't realize that the socialists, whatever, that the point of Keynesianism is to make sure that people don't have money. They don't have, they don't enjoy any of the gains of the productivity of labor.
Yes, I agree with that. I was going to say, so let's just get through a couple of these thinkers here. So, and we can discuss how they reflect on today's. So we sort of talked about Calvin, and that stuff's dark anyway. First of all, we talked a little bit to Descartes, But Locke. Okay, so Locke was really interesting to me. It takes place in the time period that I'm most interested in.
Yeah, my favorite time period.
Yeah. But so I think what I really like about this book's treatment of him is the fact that he first of all highlights the things that he was right and correct about, which is like the idea that like the human individual sovereignty is like an important value that should be upheld by the society or whatever. But also he goes, hey, but at the end of the day, he didn't believe it either. Because he was just trying to justify what was
The
going
Glorious
on.
Revolution.
Right?
Yes. Yes, but it was great. It had the separation of powers. It had consent of the government. There was two or three things that he established that were definitely based.
Yeah.
Let me
Yeah.
see. I've got it
Sure.
written down.
And also,
think
the Glorious
also-
Revolution is what saved New England, not for nothing. Just saying, by the way. It was going to be gonzo otherwise. They're going to have to move all back to England, basically. But the fact that the Protestants took over was mucho good for
Because
them.
what, they were going to stop supplying them?
Well, it had to do
How
with
could you make them move back?
well, it was a fiscal thing, where basically they were like the if I recall, oh, I remember what it was. It was that they put in the previous king, the Catholic king, actually had put in a like brutal military style cronyist dictator over all of America, basically, from New England all the way down to Virginia, and the Massachusetts guys were like, we can't do this, dude. We're gonna go back. We're gonna have to go somewhere
Yeah,
else. We're gonna have to
okay.
become French or something.
That's the Spanish style of colonialism, I think,
Yeah.
where they made counties.
I bet, yeah. But what's it called? So then they were like, we gotta figure something out with this. And so they went and then they ended up having the Glorious Revolution, which I guess turned out okay for everybody, didn't it? Like
Yeah, except for what
died
it
in
led to. It's like the next sort of English guy on the list is of
Oh,
politically.
Bentham, yeah.
What
Yeah.
a bellend.
Before
Yeah,
we
they
get
suck.
to that,
Yeah.
can
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
let's talk more about Locke.
illuminate or enumerate the three things that he contributed to the
Yeah. Please.
So contract theory, government created by people to perform tasks, and which is a kind of like social contract thing, I guess.
Except it's not true.
It is
not
not true.
true.
No,
It's
absolutely.
just-
It was
yeah.
government was created by, I think the earliest writing was tax documents,
Yeah.
like what you owe in the Egypt or whatever, the Mesopotamia or whatever it was. It was all about government was formed to steal your wheat. Agricultural revolution was about creating wheat instead of tubers so that it would all get harvested at once and they could come by and take, half of it or a third of it. Yes. So if you read Against the Grain by James Scott, I don't know if it's theoretical or he's got some evidence, but it's fair. It's an alternative to.
That sounds
to
good. I
social
want to read
contract,
that.
and I agree with it. Yeah. Okay. A theory of natural law, which is inalienable rights and limited functions of government. That government is basically
we
an
need
agreement
that.
for protection of property. Yeah. So true or not, yeah, we need it. Yeah. That's the one really good one. And then the last one is the separation of power. So a legislative and an executive branch that has judicial power and foreign affairs. Those were the
So
three.
he's extremely influential, isn't he?
Yes, right.
But
And,
people have got
he's
round
our
it.
father.
Using like Benthamite reasoning.
Yeah.
That, oh well, it would be better. Yeah, that's right. But it would be better if we could find a way around it.
Right.
So
Well,
if
that's
it's-
Talmudic. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what that. What's it? I can never remember the name of that school of philosophy.
Utilitarianism.
Utilitarianism. So that's Bentham's the father of that, isn't he?
He is.
And
yeah.
the panopticon. He's the father of the panopticon.
He literally
yeah.
coined it too, which is I didn't
Yeah.
know that. When I first read about the panopticon, I obviously heard about the Foucault panopticon, and I was like, "Oh man, how terrible that anyone could even conceive of such a terrible thing." And I'm reading this book, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this guy actually said
Yeah.
we should do this." Like,
yeah. And he tried to get it done. I have one more thing on Locke, though. Sorry, not to shut you down, but
no, I like Locke. I like Locke. I
he
wanna hear
said
more about him.
one thing I noticed. He said that it was good to make education fun, that children can be educated
Yeah.
without knowing it, and that I felt, whatever in the context I was reading, was like he's the father of propaganda. That's propaganda.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
To get
But-
people to learn things without realizing they're learning, which is a great way of teaching kids, especially if
Yeah.
you love them. But what if
Yeah,
you
I think
don't?
he did like kids, didn't he?
Yeah,
What-
it was fun, but it's one of the many things that this guy Neil says. The father of these ideas would not like it if they realized how they
Yeah.
were used and
Yeah,
abused
yeah,
in the
yeah.
future.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
John Locke's all right with me. I think he was my favorite out of the whole
Yeah.
schmear.
Yeah, I like Newton too. Who we're
Yeah,
coming to
Newton was
now.
great. Yeah, because Newton didn't give a shit about science. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was just like, yeah, I'll just fart out this whole theory of
Calculus.
motion.
And he's like, oh shit, I better write calculus down
Yeah, it
because
was
somebody else is figuring it out.
Yeah.
It was just obvious to him, wasn't it? He didn't have to do
Yeah,
anything.
He's like,
yeah.
you know, that little math scheme I used to get to this
Yeah.
end. You know?
Yeah, to see how long it was going to take for my gas to pump. I was like, wait, I should write that down.
Mm.
I always think that because you don't know what calculus is for, but it really is. Like if you're waiting at the gas pump, you know,
I
you
don't know
think
what calculus is.
it's
It's that.
like taking all the variables and figuring out it's a function of whatever. So the time it's going to take is a function of the circumference of the hose, the
Right.
speed, the velocity of the pumping. And I just never understood calculus. Like, oh my gosh, like it's so useful. You can't
Right.
really
Yeah.
do it in your head, which is annoying. But yeah.
Or it's like it's the same idea as like being like, oh, the murders were here, here, and here. So the guy's got to be living somewhere around here. That's also calculus. You know what I mean?
Really? I think that's, I don't know. I feel like that's
I don't know.
geometry.
I mean, maybe that's. I mean, it incorporates other things like
yes. You
commuting
can
time and-
interpolate into using enough. If you have enough variables, it's a function of this,
Yeah.
that,
And
the
so
other.
really you can say that he's an influence on the he's influenced everything as well with calculus, because like you could say psychological profiling would never have happened without Newton.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or
That
it
is-
would have
yeah,
done because somebody else would have thought of calculus.
Well, Leibniz, I
and did.
think,
that's true,
did
yeah. The German guy
actually-
Leibniz, yeah.
Yeah, but so Newton didn't figure out a form of notation. So he was just like, don't you get it? Like
Yeah.
how fast it comes out of the tube is how long it's going to take. and the other wrote it was like, it's F of T and F
Yeah.
of V.
Yeah, that is handy.
Yeah.
For those
Except for you
not
still
as-
can't do it in your head, so I don't care about it either.
Yeah. Well, Newton could, so he's like, "What are you
Exactly.
stupid?
Yeah.
That's fucking
Stupid? You can't do
That's
this."
yeah. That's what William is saying, that he just intuited all this stuff.
Yeah, he spent most of his life just doing what he was really
Theology.
what he worked on was
Theology and alchemy, I thought.
biblical timeline, wasn't it? It was like figuring out the
Yeah.
historical
Incredibly base. Just gotta say that is an
biblical
incredibly
it
base
was
way to
biblical
spend your time.
chronology. Yeah,
Yes.
But
So Newton was
Neil
the
says he
champ.
didn't do a good job
Hmm?
of that. Neil says he did not do a good job of that.
no, but at least he was trying.
But he couldn't figure it out. Nobody could.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so there's a lot of like there's a lot of conception, I will say, about what Newton's theology was. So I think he's probably best characterized as like a Christian
sorry, can I
Unitarian of some kind.
Just sort of slam the brakes on for a minute and just
Sure.
go back to Monica on her last remark. Maybe Newton couldn't figure it out. Maybe somebody else could. I think we do all have gifts which we're born with, which are given by God. Just an example of this, my daughter, little Emma, she can read, and she could read things. I mean, yeah, she got taught to read, but she could read things that she'd never been taught to read. She could read like advertising signs and stuff way before she went to school and all that. So, with long words on, she could just read them, and she can read music
Wow.
more easily than. I mean, she's been taught that as well, but she's got
Right, but
an
it's
aptitude
I
for
can't
that.
figure that. Yeah.
But she hates doing. I mean, she can't. She's getting the hang of it now, but she hates doing maths. So it's like
Similar
everybody's
skill
got-
set to me, I have to say.
Yeah, yeah.
The opposite of me.
Right.
Really, yeah.
All I can
hate
do is math.
I
It's all I can do. So yeah, that's interesting. And I think I was thinking about Newton. Like, could you give him an autopsy and know that? Like,
yeah,
could
I
you?
doubt. No, I
Is
don't
it
think you can.
really
Because there is such a thing as a soul. Isn't there?
physiognomical?
No,
Yeah.
of course it isn't. It's God given, isn't it? It's something supernatural. I think there is something supernatural in all of us. I think in denying the supernatural, that is what we're denying ourselves, and that's why we've ended up in this Ted Kaczynski's worst nightmare situation. Is because people don't even admit that there's anything divine about themselves.
And
Sure.
that's in part the point of this book. But what you're
Yeah.
talking about also is the talents, the parable of the talents. Like you need
Yeah.
to, everybody needs to contribute something. And that's why the idea of equality is
Yeah.
so abused.
It's
Because
caustic.
you don't want everybody going to college. We're not all equal in that way. It's a complete waste. And then people are miserable. They call it, I think Thomas Sowell wrote about it. Like if you over promote someone outside of their, it's like the Peter principle or whatever, outside of their realm of competence, all of a sudden, instead of being a star, they're a failure.
Yeah.
So the idea of equality, you must understand that, you plug in where you plug in, and it should be dignified and satisfying. And, you should be able to save your soul and all that, but you don't have to look the same from the outside.
No, I agree.
But yeah, so the theology thing though. So I think it's also interesting that like Newton had like this massive impact on like what would be, this is probably a bad thing probably, but but like he had this massive impact on like the what would become. So this is the thing. So the Bentham is next. He's not next. Rousseau is next, but Bentham is good question. Yeah, we can pause real quick.
Yeah.
Let's pause. Okay. Yeah, we're working on both ends. Okay, cool. Where were we?
You were just about to talk about Bentham?
Oh, right. So I was going to say, so this, we ended up, the Newtonianism is possibly the downside of Newton, is that he had this sort of like, or is it Newton really who led to this? But like this idea that usefulness is like good, or where's that Locke?
Well, the
Usefulness is good,
utilitarianism.
That's what I mean. Like the idea that you should be working towards something all the time, and that's
well, common sense. Locke was that you can disagree with your neighbor and still live in peace.
Yeah.
right. Based.
Yes. That might have been Bentham.
Okay, so
The utilitarians.
fair enough. Okay, but yeah, so the idea that like it's godly, I guess you could even really trace that back to like Calvin almost. It's like godly to be efficient or something.
Yeah. Line go up.
Yeah,
Or smile.
I mean that's where
Well,
it ended
that's
up
how
being,
you
yeah.
get like Nazis and shit. That's what he was saying. He did say that about somebody. You would.
We've all been showing our mugs off today.
There you go.
Nice.
Who's that lady holding your daughter?
So this says actually, no, these are all leading to Nazism apparently. Like I have all these notes, but anyway.
I don't know that. I mean, it doesn't seem very. Well, never mind. I'm not going to go down that road.
All right.
I don't think
Anyway,
they care that much about efficiency if they're doing something that they've been alleged to have done.
yes.
Oh, the Hamantashen.
Yeah. Doesn't seem very efficient.
Yeah, I mean, Bentham's utilitarians is the closest.
Okay, fair. I'm sorry for getting off track there, but yeah.
really,
So
this is from your little aside there, Scott. This is the thing with
Yes.
utilitarianism is that it is. If you could prove to a utilitarianism that it would be just like as if you could prove
Your
to Tom
libertarian
Woods that
shot,
having
the shot you take at libertarians.
yeah, if you could prove that Trans Olympics made line go up, then
yeah,
Tom Woods would be against it. But probably that old New York Jew guy wouldn't be. What's his name?
Rothbard would
No,
probably.
not Rothbard. The one that's still alive now.
Oh, Gene Epstein.
Gene
Yeah,
Epstein, right?
yeah.
But all these utilitarian ideas, just like libertarian ideas, get just like cherry picked by people to fit into their own prejudices. So, from the Nazi point of view, then that Hamantashen system was they would dress it up in the costume of efficiency because they were pretending to be utilitarian.
I suppose.
like these utilitarians are promoting all kinds of stuff, which is manifestly not utilitarian, but they say it is because it
Right,
just
yeah.
fits their prejudices, like mass immigration, for instance, or whatever.
Right.
They say
I saw a
it's
pretty good meme to that end specifically. They were like, oh, they used to make the argument that like you would need to get mass immigration to pay for your pension, old white
yeah,
people. But
yeah,
now it's like, oh, we're gonna have to cut into the pensions in order to help fund for the welfare that's needed for the recent arrivals and stuff. And it's like, oh, very utilitarian.
yeah,
I see here.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
like,
what
the Benthamites have completely taken over their legacy on British government is
I think you're right
absolutely
about that.
manifest. It's usurped Locke
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah.
because they have this sort of slogan of evidence-based policy, and of course the comeback to
Right.
that is, well, what you get is policy-based evidence.
Right. Yes, of course. Yeah. The tail's wagging the dog.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so, okay. By the way,
but
I
everyone's
got it mixed up.
even people who are opposed to this stuff, to this evidence-based policy, they still aren't opposed to the idea of evidence-based policy.
Of course. Yeah.
That's the influence of
Like if you could
Benthamites.
prove that it was better, like
Yeah.
with with a reasonable amount of skepticism towards what ends were being reached, you could, I mean, you could convince a lot of people with that. But okay, but
Yeah.
the reason I was getting, sorry I said Newton, but what I meant to say was Rousseau
Right.
was the guy who said, oh, we can just systematize everything. And so the Bentham guys, or the utilitarians, they're like, let's take that to its logical conclusion. Basically, like, let's literally systemize everything imaginable and then use that to pick out what is the best way to run society. Now, so Rousseau, you were quick to point out, is that even when he had this goofy idea where, oh, we're going to make a system of math forever that runs everything or whatever, he still included God in that. Like, he
Yeah.
was like, okay, we're going to systematize God, which, you know, again, I'm not my cup of tea per se, but at least he was thinking about it.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys are like, we're like, let's systematize God out of the picture. Like,
Well, it's like Monica says, you know, and the author, I can't remember his name.
Thomas
Neil.
Patrick
Neil,
Yeah.
yeah. Fake Neil.
Real
Shout
Neil.
out. he yeah, I mean he acknowledges that, doesn't he? That a lot of these guys wouldn't like what's been done with their ideas, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think Bentham would have loved it because he's
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. Literally, just gonna say like, I think he
Bentham-
would be in hog heaven if he got a glimpse of what he hath wrought.
Jeremy Bentham was like a immature man baby idiot savant type of character, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was
yeah,
like
but-
in some ways a genius. All he did was he did really well on his exams without ever having to go to school.
Try,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. Like, you know, but he never grew up. He was he was like a 14-year-old boy for his whole life.
Yeah.
He jerked off a lot.
I imagine, yeah. No,
Let's
I was gonna
be
say this
honest,
is
it's
also
probably
the
the
same
best, greatest amount of good for the greatest number of people.
sure for him, yeah. One person, yes. What I was just gonna say, so this is like the same school of thought you get like Malthus, like this, or and Jonathan Swift. He was being witty, but like I think at the end of the day, he really did think they should eat the poor.
Yeah.
He was definitely of that school of thought where it's like, yeah, we got all these poor people. Well, this is where that idea of like of social, you know, now we call it social Darwinism, but it's an idea that these guys came up with. They didn't have the Darwin to put the name on it, but they were like, okay, we should just let the poor starve to death. Therefore, all the best people will rise to the top. Ergo, we'll have a better, stronger society. And it's like,
Oh, that's another thing I didn't know. I knew about Malthus, but I didn't realize the guy was a blasted Church of England clergyman.
oh yeah,
And
yeah,
it was
yeah.
basically Bentham that had taken something he'd written in a letter to the Times or something and run with that.
Sure.
I mean, but this just proves Neil's point that how crazy things will spin out once
Yeah.
you become untethered
Yeah.
from God.
Well, while you were gone, Monica, sorry, but I
Oh, you
had
covered
said-
that
I s-
already?
No, no, no. I
Sorry,
was
I
just
have
gonna
a
say
kid emergency.
it's all
I'm
good.
sorry.
Well, I was gonna say I was stupidly when we came back from the moment break there. I had stupidly said, "Oh, it's Newton that led to this." No, 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 no. I was wrong. It's Rousseau was the one who led to this because this idea of
Yes.
Yeah.
systematizing everything, and then. But as I said to William while you're gone, at least Rousseau, maybe he was wrong to try to systematize God, but at least he was thinking about systematizing God. Like
Yeah.
at least he was in the picture still.
He was including God. That's the
Yeah.
thing. A lot of these guys were trying to include God and yet were used to negate him. Like
Yeah.
Newton would be horrified if he thought
Sure.
that anything that he did was going to actually negate God, but they use him to one of my notes on this was that nature became divine in Newton's world machine, that both God and man took minor roles,
Definitely.
and he wouldn't have meant that, like that we were a
Yeah.
machine.
Yeah. No, like, well, I read a lot of sort of 19th century English literature, and this is where that sort of providentialist English outlook comes from. Whereas, like they kind of rolled science and God up into this concept of providence. And you always get characters saying, "Well, isn't it providential that this happened, and we're going to have to trust in providence and all this." But that is taking God out of it, isn't it? And it's like a grudging. I mean, yeah, God created nature and science, but to just sort of stop talking about God and start talking about providence is
Yeah.
thin
You've
end
made
of
an
the wedge.
amalgam.
Yeah, it's the thin end of the wedge, isn't it? And because people were so excited about, following on from Newton, so excited about it having been proved that there were universal physical laws.
Yeah. We learned a
And
lot of
they ran with
good
it.
stuff
Yeah.
from that. Like,
But I
we
feel like
did
that
it.
proves God.
Yeah,
I
exactly. Yeah,
think
of
it
course
does too. Yeah. And I think Newton did too, by the by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, for instance, my hero, my favorite British military hero, Thomas Cochrane, his father was he blew all the family money and basically bankrupted the family by shoveling money into a project to make gold out of coal tar because uh, because it was a I mean,
Alchemy.
yeah, which is what
I think
Newton was
Newton.
into. Yeah, Newton
Yeah,
was into
Newton
alchemy.
dabbled
Big
with
time, big
alchemy.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which the secret of alchemy, by the way, is that it's all piss based.
right.
It like unironically is like all, you know why they call that alchemical society in like the late 1800s, early 1900s, the Golden Dawn?
Right.
When's the best time to get a large amount of piss?
Yeah, and it's more yellow as well, isn't
Yeah, right.
it? Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I do actually sort of have to like every time I see like a historical figure doing stuff with alchemy, I'm like, this dude plays with his piss.
Yeah.
Like, how smart can he really be?
Well, they
Like,
put piss in diesel engines now.
what?
Yeah. In Europe, you have to have this additive called AdBlue, which is pig piss. Pig's urea.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, because it's like sort of indicate like where it is in the hose or something kind of thing.
It has a separate tank on it, and it's
Oh,
used
okay.
to like filter the particulates out of diesel exhaust.
Okay, so let's talk also a little bit about well, by the way, how I gotta ask you this. This is totally from no experience, but is would it be out of school for me to assume that someone utilizing some sort of rhyming slang would call someone an Emmanuel?
They might do, yeah.
But yeah,
Not when there's ladies present, though.
of course not. Of course not. Word. I was just gonna say, that's the thing. I want long time ago, a listener of ours from Australia, I hope he still listens, commented to me that William's outlook on the world is very Kantian. And
Right.
as I've learned more and more about him, I can't like totally disagree with it because like where else could the mind, besides the shared outlook of Immanuel Kant and William from England, where else could you get um there's nothing wrong with necrophilia? Where could you else get libertarian bee ethics?
Yeah.
Where else could you get that sort of stuff other than from William Kant over here?
I didn't say. Well, yeah. I, yeah. Those are kind of entertainment
I know,
theories,
I
though.
know. But it's a Kantian exercise thought experiment, is
right.
it not?
Wasn't Kant one of the ones where his time had not come until after he was gone?
I think
Yeah, I
that's
think so.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says, after Kant comes intellectual agnosticism and moral subjectivism. There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't know the stars above, but you can know the morality within.
Right. So the idea being one of his key things is like the what do you call it? The moral imperative. Is it the moral imperative or the
Yeah.
something imperative? And the my big critique of libertarianism really is it's too Kantian. Because again, this is what William was saying before a line go up, where it's like, well, if you know, the idea of the NAP, the non-aggression principle, is
Mhm.
incredibly Kantian. This idea that it's like, well, I can do whatever I want as long as I don't literally steal stuff from you. I'm actually a good person. Like,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's not really how society works. Like, and if everybody's doing bad stuff that doesn't affect other people, it's a worse society.
Yeah. That is true.
If people, you hurt yourself all the time and everyone does it, and you technically not hurting other people, and you're therefore living a purely libertarian ethos, but you also life sucks.
I
Oh,
have a note in here that
there's a
I
wasp.
think oh yikes.
Excuse
Life
me.
does suck.
I'll mute
See, there's
myself.
two
All right,
in
I'll
the
take
room.
my time. Do cute. Nice. That's good. I have here, do what thou wilt is the whole of the law may have arisen from Kant.
I agree.
Yeah, this is the morality that made prohibition seem like a noble experiment. But he
But
said,
he
don't
would rackle, he would hackle at
haggle,
that
haggle at
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was saying this is what it was like hard for me to get my mind around. Don't be good for God's sake. Be good because it is the right thing to do. And I
Yeah.
absolutely hate that. I think that's the foundation of secular humanism, and I think it does not work at all. And I use this example all the time. Mother Teresa, one of the things she has this little her own little beatitudes, I would call them. One of them is like listen to the drunks. I mean,
Okay.
who doesn't feel totally justified in not listening to a fucking drunk? Like, fuck you.
Yeah.
You did this to yourself. You're incredibly boring. You smell. I got better things to do. And it's a really interesting thing. And you couldn't do that if you're a secular humanist because what are you doing it for? This person doesn't deserve it. And I would say no one deserves it. So you're never going to do good for good's sake because how do you even define that? And it's hard to do good for that in a vacuum to take one good, your own, and give it to somebody else without a higher purpose, specifically
Sure.
God, who was watching and giving you credit for it, because I think that's consistent with human nature.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
also
he's-
worth mentioning too, to that end, is with Kant, his whole thing was like the government. The government is like probably like your source of morality, essentially. And I think he probably drew on the fact that these kings were in his mind, because as it was for all the people of the time, were like, oh yeah, God picked that guy to be the
Yeah.
king, essentially. So therefore, God wouldn't make a bad decision about that. Ergo, everything that guy does has a certain sheen of morality. Ergo, you should listen to him.
Yeah. I mean, I like Dominic Scarcella's clap back to that one.
Yeah, which was
Well, if God's the one who gives out the kingdoms, how come the devil was able to offer them all to Jesus?
Good point.
true.
Yeah.
Great point.
One of the things of Kant, if I understood it correctly, that I hate is that he's this guy. Neil says over and over again. I think he separates perception from understanding, and I think that is the foundation of our being fooled easily, being able to lie to ourselves. I think it's how psychology and sociology are used to say, okay, you think people have incentive to steal from welfare so that they can lay around and eat bonbons and not go to work. But because of
I can vouch for
psychology,
that.
yeah, it is what happens. But because of psychology, what you don't understand is their incentive is to have dignity, and they would work if they could. I think
Yeah.
psychology and sociology are a way to tell you that there are forces at work that you cannot perceive,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
therefore you can't understand them. And I just think that's the foundation of all the self-lying bullshit that leads us to pretend like we're voting for things out of the goodness of our heart, when in reality it's our self-interest.
Crime comes to mind, where it's like you don't understand why they kill each
Yes.
other at such high rates. It's because they don't
Yeah.
have fucking, it's a food desert.
They don't
It's
have-
like, okay,
yeah, they don't have
they don't like
60%.
that food. They don't like it. They don't want
Yeah.
to eat food from Whole Foods. They want to eat cheap
Yeah.
hot Cheetos.
Yeah, they don't have, their shoes don't have enough dignity.
I got into the biggest
their
argument with my
iPhones.
mom the other day because she was saying like, "Oh, food deserts." I'm like, "There's no such thing as a food
There's
desert.
absolutely not. Yeah.
Capitalism exists."
No.
And this is the one area of capitalism that's kind of not messed with by the government, is that where certain food things, they end up where they're supposed to be.
Absolutely. You can't keep them down. They're like weeds. They're
People need to eat.
yeah. And I mean, in my neighborhood, which is totally burnt out, like the only thing standing are 3 incredibly cheap Mexican restaurants.
Right.
Like just
There you go.
cheap as dirt. And my husband wouldn't even go there. I'm like, this is the best. He's like, this is not the best. But it's everywhere. They came back just to feed the workers up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you cannot keep it down. They'll bring it to you. There are food trucks everywhere. Yeah, there's no food desert. If there was a food desert, there would be a food truck there.
But that's what I mean. So you could have a conversation with a totally rational person
Yeah.
to explain, where you're trying to explain, like, listen, I'm not advocating for any policy. I'm just saying that there's reasons why that certain demographics have higher instances of different activities.
Yeah, that's why I live in a grape soda desert.
There's no grape soda near you. That's a
No.
shame.
That's good for you. It's like California has banned menthol cigarettes. Did I tell you that?
It's
So
banned
is-
here too. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
which
of
are
Europe
great.
as well.
Yeah. They're gonna
All of Europe. What's
Yeah.
the reason for Europe? Here it's because it's the preferred cigarette of Black people, I think, and they feel like it encourages them to smoke, and you need to take better care of them.
They think it's like flavored cigarettes.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
for people who don't really like
kids.
cigarettes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Okay. So everything's being banned to protect people from themselves
themselves,
to do it, but not like whatever NutraSweet.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
my
I hate to
anyone
say, I
turn-
think that's a dated reference. Unfortunately, NutraSweet.
NutraSweet.
Yeah.
anyone
It's like 95% of all FDA complaints are headaches from NutraSweet, but okay.
Interesting. I don't know. I
Well,
don't eat it.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID. Sorry.
I was
Mike.
gonna say though, but anyway, the reason I even brought any of that rhetoric up was just to say, you're right. Kant is the guy who goes, yeah, Leah, listen, I know you know that this is true,
Yeah.
but it's not the way you think it is. You know,
Yeah,
like-
you're wrong. And yes, and a lot of these guys have this thing where they're acting like there is this objective truth that is innate, that you
Yeah.
know from within. And the reality is they are all creating pure subjectivism, their objective truth being simply what they think, or in Rousseau's case, what he feels. Like I think Descartes would say what he thinks.
Yeah.
And they're negating any kind of objectivism, but their argument is like the people, the will of the people, the will of the state. That's Rousseau's thing. Like the whole will of the state is valid because it is a reflection of the common will, and you can't deviate from that because we're all of the body of nothing, like
Yeah.
of each other.
Yeah, but I think even Rousseau acknowledged that was kind of impossible. He said, well, it's not my job to implement it. He wasn't saying
Yeah.
that it had already been
Yeah.
implemented. He was saying
Right.
that's what,
What it ought to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And wasn't he the one who wrote things that are exact opposite of himself later?
yeah,
Yes. He had a
makes sense.
detrimental impact on Thomas Jefferson, in my humble opinion.
That, yeah.
Really?
This idea that Thomas Jefferson is why this country sucks, actually. Everyone sucks his dick.
Wow.
Yeah. But the idea that the fact that, first of all, he's a hypocrite. We talk about this all the time, and the fact that he literally was like, "Oh, I'm Mr. I hate the government," and then all of a sudden,
Louisiana Purchase.
Aaron Burr tries
Yeah.
to, well, that
Marbury
too.
v. Madison.
Yeah, but Aaron Burr tries to just to go chill in another part of America, and he's like, "Get them! We need to create a federal police force, essentially,
Yeah.
to stop him from doing that."
And put him through a kangaroo court and executed him as well.
Yeah, yeah. But what's
in
it
this
called?
In this book about Patrick Henry, I believe it is this book.
Patrick Henry seems based as hell, by the way.
Yeah, it starts with saying Patrick Henry complaining that Thomas Jefferson was writing history to make himself the hero and to diminish Patrick Henry, and it really pissed him off, all the things he did to write, like Churchill, to write the history around himself. And that Patrick Henry was the based one. He lost, of course, so that's why nobody knows that.
Yeah, John Adams and Patrick Henry were boys, and Thomas Jefferson was boys with like what's his name? What's his Jew? They're Alexander Hamilton. Yeah.
Why do you make that? What?
Because he's a banker.
He was English, by the way, also.
Well, this is
he was born an English
worse.
subject. That's why that's in the Constitution, that you had to be born there just so Alexander Hamilton could not be president.
Yeah, yeah. But he sucks. Why would you want him to be president? He's like,
well, he was a banker. George Washington was in on that too.
I don't know that George Washington exists.
Okay, fair enough. But he was a land speculator, which in the day, land speculation was considered like usury. It was not. It was really not a respected thing to do.
But yeah, no, I will say, so my point being is that, so Rousseau had a major impact on Jefferson. And so which is why, he had this idea that, basically he was dooming the country to be a slave country because of these Rousseauvian principles that, hey, listen, a lot of people want it, therefore it's good.
Yeah.
Which is so batshit. Like, first of all.
Yeah, no, Locke. Give me Locke every day of the week when it comes to that era.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, and this, yeah, you're right. Locke is the antidote to that thinking, by the way.
And it's what's written in is Locke stuff.
Yeah. But what's it called? The Rousseauvian idea there, but being like, it's almost like this, like, Hegelian thing. He sort of has this, like, the idea where, like, it's inevitable that the human, it's Marxian, I guess I'll even say.
Yeah.
It's like this idea that it's inevitable that the people's voice will ring out over and that's like, sorry, buddy, I got a lot of reasons why that's not true, first of all. But yeah, no, I think it just had a really bad impact on, like, America could have been so much better without slavery, in my opinion. Is that crazy to say? Like,
well, of course.
Well, it would have gone away. They tried to get rid of it so many times. Like, didn't Henry Clay and like they tried and they just couldn't figure out a way to compensate people for their loss of property, I think is how was the sticking point. But it still would have gone away. And what's really awful about the whole thing is, England got rid of it and continued to profit from it by keeping it here. But that after it did go away, it was a problem. So now, like, for the powers
still
that
is a
be,
problem.
But this is
happened.
what I'm saying. No, they now use it to invalidate the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, which the whole point of getting rid of slavery is to avail yourself of those protections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a conflict with that.
Totally couldn't agree more. But that's what I'm saying. We're literally living in the consequences. Not a day goes by where I have to hear about the bitching about this shit.
And they said that back then. They said this will be the unwinding of you. But William, what bitching do you hear in England? Because it can't be that, right?
Well,
it's not that, yeah.
I don't really know because in fact it was that
you live under a rock.
Yeah, it made me stop watching TV altogether. I stopped watching all I used to watch was international cricket, and I used to
Even
Wa-
that is now
watch-
too political for you.
Yeah, I used to watch
Yeah.
stolen streams
On Indian
of
websites.
that on Indian websites.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
But they when that whole BLM thing was kicking off, they all went along with that in the commentary and the teams and all that, and I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous, and so I'm not watching it anymore.
Yeah. Well, you
I
guys have the POIC or whatever, right?
I can't remember what they call it.
It's like the
BAME,
person
BAME.
BAME,
color-
yes.
of colored.
Black,
Black,
Asian, Middle Eastern,
Minority ethnic.
minority.
I have
ethnic,
a
right.
friend, a podcasting friend in Birmingham, who's West Indian, and he has his passport is stamped with like I'm a minority.
With
That's what he
BAME,
said.
right? Wow.
Something like that. Yeah, he said it's on the thing. And I'm like, yeah, how could that possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
How are we not like their heads are not disappearing up their own assholes at that point?
Yeah.
Well, I've observed before that the actual, I mean, the black immigration to the UK. I mean, I guess in some places it's a big problem, but I don't think it's so much as an immigration problem as a welfare problem, really. But where it is a problem, but sort of up north where I live, you've got a fairly small West Indian diaspora who will do things like have a job, like doing a blue collar job and making enough money to support the family and going to church and stuff like that, and they're all right, obviously. And then
Yeah.
you've got this later wave, and still continuing wave of African, Nigerian mainly, I think, migrants, and they're either or both, by and large, very hard working and well educated, but they're not like I've said on the show before. Your West Indian guy in Yorkshire, your West Indian lorry driver in Yorkshire, which is a rare bird, by the way, because there aren't many of them, will remind me more of the white blue collar guys of my youth than any of the white blue collar guys do now. They're less sort of.
I observed that too.
Yeah, they're less losery and sort of pathetic, and
like my dad. Like it was.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And it's pornography.
Yeah, it could be. But I have to say, for a while now, I'm like, these powers that be are actually, I think, elitist racists of the highest order, and all this DEI stuff or whatever is either set up or it's just a way to manipulate. Obviously destroys those very communities that they act like they're trying to help. And then it just came out. I don't know if you guys have read this. It hasn't gotten much. I haven't heard anybody else talk about it too much, but Klaus Schwab is like, Eric Holder is leading this investigation for Sullivan and Cromwell against Klaus Schwab and his son as being like racist, sexist, whatever. He's getting pushed out of the World Economic Forum, and he doesn't mind that, but his son is also getting pushed out. But I had long suspected, I mean, obviously it's bullshit, like our little, we need to teach African children how to code because we love them is not a true statement.
But you see, so I would say, if you accept the need for immigrants to come over here and work to pay our pensions, then your Nigerians or whatnot are the least of our worries. It's the ones that are a problem are Ukrainians.
Oh, really? Because they're getting like refugee money and it makes them not integrate, or what's or because
weird.
They're Nazis? Yeah.
They don't. No intention of learning to speak English or anything like that. By and large, they're pretty terrible. But it's mainly from the Muslim world, which also we famously don't have a problem with Muslim guys. And again, there's a different strata of it, but I
think the two waves thing applies here.
Yeah, but they don't really. They've got they're more like they're not particularly talented or hardworking or whatever. I guess they are hardworking, but or can be, but they've got that same thing that the Africans have got, which is they don't integrate, and so it's like it really is there are the places where you wouldn't feel comfortable.
Right.
But I mean, I don't really know where I'm going with that. But no, I do know where I'm going with it. I think the point of this second wave of it, it's a double-edged sword. Number one, it's to destabilize Western Europe, and number two is to destabilize the countries where these people come from.
Yes. That's the thing about the immigration.
Yeah.
The Pope should not be saying, open your doors. It should say, stop bombing these countries, stop undermining their economies, stop doing all the things that make them leave their countries where they're destabilized, they receive welfare. It destroys their culture, their religions, their support systems. It's absolutely terrible. There's so many root causes of these
because
things that no one will talk about.
Human nature, nobody wants to leave where they're from. Unless it's really bad there and they're told it's going to be really good somewhere else. All these like Ukrainian prostitutes don't think that they think they're going to come over here and work as somebody's nanny and they're going to get paid £1 million a year. But they're not.
And they can't go back. Whereas my great-grandfather came over from Syria and had to go back. He couldn't stand it. He had to go back. He left my grandmother in an orphanage for her own good. And he went back. But you can't go back now. You can go to Syria.
No.
And then you'd be
definitely
pissed.
not there.
Super pissed. I know. And that's the thing. Like this, so many Syrians have died. They literally just fucking invaded that country, and nobody talks about it at all.
They covered it up with a CEO of a healthcare company assassination too.
Yeah, that's
everyone
true.
was occupied with that all weekend. They just did a coup over there.
Yeah, no, that just makes me sick, and nobody talks about it. Anyway, but we're getting this guy's got to go to work, so
yeah, I have. Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that if you wouldn't mind hitting the reason I wanted you guys to explain this to me, like how would you define the pre-modern and modern and postmodern mind that this guy's talking about? I have some stuff on the pre-modern, the Renaissance.
Yeah.
And
well, I was going to say, I think
I'm not smart enough to think outside my own head enough to even have a concept of the pre-modern. I think I've got a modern mind, and that's all I can.
But you understand postmodern, I think.
Not really.
Which I don't. Okay, go ahead.
I don't either. I don't.
I was just going to say, I think modern is like possibly, I'll put it this way. This is a good way to think about it. Modern, I think you can draw like some pretty good sort of planks out of these movements by like looking at like the media and literature that they inspire. And I think the modern like the modern mind or the modern era is best defined by romanticism. You get what I'm saying? Where like the idea that like like the Percy Bysshe Shelley, like that kind of stuff, where it's like everything is sort of in its place, and it's got this sort of this sense that everything's getting better all the time. It's wig is the word in England, was the
Whiggish.
political was this idea that we're working towards something, but it's good. And pre-modern, I think you probably know pretty good about this, Monica, but like it's the idea that everything's static essentially and nothing's changing, and it's good that it's not changing. That's pre-modern thought.
Well, but the stepping stone was the Renaissance, which in my like brief overview of it was basically a couple of things contributed, set the stage, whatever. The fall of Constantinople chased Greeks into Europe, and they brought their, revived the classics. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I didn't realize that. And then also it was mentioned, and I came across that the Black Death in the 14th century led to an emergence of middle class and a sense of independence in the people, because then there was a labor shortage and people had power. And then they started to get pissed about the church and the tithing, and they were like, I don't need you. And that's why Luther found fertile ground.
Sure.
Oh,
that's interesting. I didn't hear that before. But that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah, could be.
Because like if you now suddenly have like a bit of economic independence, it's like yeah, well, I want to take this a little further than that. Like it makes sense. And can you blame them?
That's what Bismarck said to the
Yeah.
Kaiser. That's how we got the welfare state. Bismarck said to the Kaiser said that I'm losing the love of the people. And Bismarck said, well, they're making too much money. Like, take their money and give it back to them later, and they'll love you in their dependence on you. And that's how you get Social Security and stuff. I think. I mean, this is just reaching from my own synthesis of
Sure, I
in my
didn't even
memory.
hear. I've never heard that story before. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the NHS, classic example.
Yeah.
Bismarck.
What I was gonna say though is, but yeah, so the modern, in my opinion, is like this idea that like everything's progressing and it's good, and we have these sort of like cultural signposts that we can look to in order to guide us or whatever.
Segregation and women's lib and stuff. Would those be guideposts, cultural guideposts, or?
Well, I would say that was, I guess that is part of modern, yeah, I guess. But I was saying more like the idea that like you know there's like these symbols that like embody what am I trying to get at here? I'm trying to say like the idea that like romanticism, like the idea that like the king and then like, you got like our culture is good, and anything done within that, within the bounds of that, is good.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in America, that it a lot of times found itself to be like Protestant, Protestant Puritanism,
Economic progress
is good, and we should work on that more.
Yeah.
Line go up.
Yeah. And then but postmodernism is like, basically they realize that's bullshit in general. And I don't agree with all the conclusions that they draw, but basically the postmodernism is this idea like, okay, now it's time to like parse these ideas and sort of figure out how things that we weren't paying attention to before, in our hubris to progress, what some of the unseen forces that are going on.
Here's another book by.
Is this Guido Caprata too?
Yeah. What? You know this one?
I had it. Somebody sent me a PDF
I probably
to it.
Sent it to you. The Ideology of Tyranny, Bataille, Foucault, and the Postmodern Corruption of Political Dissent. So I'll have to read that. But
well, yeah, I'll have to check that out too. I had somebody send me the PDF, but it's like I don't see how you could. I don't like Foucault. He's a pedophile, literally a pedophile. As a guy, I don't like him, but I would really like to see someone read his work and be like, this guy's full of shit, because all he's doing is calling balls and strikes, basically, as far as like how society has worked. He doesn't even prescribe anything in his books, to my knowledge.
I don't know why when I read that, I got the impression that maybe, and I know William has also observed this, is it used to be in the 80s and 90s and whatever, until I think George Bush, it used to be that they tried to get us to agree in the middle, in this liberal fascist center. Yeah. And then I think after the hanging Chad or whatever, after they realized how powerful it was to say, like, not my president, that the conflict was so much easier to deal with, to just have people just really take to an art, hating the other side as the way to win.
Yeah.
They sow conflict instead. And I felt like
that's postmodern. That is postmodern. It's a weaponization of postmodern analysis, I guess.
Yes.
But yeah, that's
bathwater thing for sure.
Thank you to Johnny Vedmore here, but like we see who the people who picked that system out was. Like it's literally that, like those Epstein funded dinners where they're having dinner and going, all right, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna get people into camps and they're gonna hate each other. And then every time their team gets a win, they'll be happy, and every time their team loses, they're mad. And
does he have the documents?
Yeah, he was showing me some stuff.
I believe you. Yeah, he's good.
Like the slides from the presentations they did at these dinners.
That's what I try to say. I'm like, I know that they write it down. Like, I know that they are literally have these conversations. Like, this is what we're gonna do. And sometimes you stumble upon one, and then there's like 100 more for every other thing. But I can't fight every one of those battles and get the documents.
And they had that Chinese guy in front of Congress. He was going like, yes, we at Facebook absolutely have this algorithm that's based on keeping you on the site longer by feeding you things that piss you off and then countering it with something that validates you. So it just goes back and forth. It keeps you on the site longer, and this is the thing he didn't say, but I would say is that it calcifies your opinion.
Yes.
It makes
Well,
you
if you,
less
yeah.
flexible on your opinion.
Yeah, that's one thing I read in that Quartz article about the NSA creating Google, that what they wanted to do is really that your searches give them way more information about you than
Yeah.
your Facebook, that stuff that you put out. It's like a critic, and that eventually they would use that information to create your own community of not real people called
Right.
birds of a feather. And they could then kind of whatever, I think the expression in a different article was enhanced dystopian subcultures
Sure.
and or dysfunctional subcultures.
Right. Yes.
And then they can, so it's
I'm
another
looking at
way.
you, furries.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is, all of that is documented, and yeah, they do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so much to it, the postmodern like thought, but basically I think the key element of it is like let's analyze like how the stuff that's like, whereas modernism is like we take you at your word essentially, and postmodernism is like, okay, let's look at your intentions, I guess.
And maybe you don't even know what they
Maybe you don't know what they are. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Or what's going on really, essentially.
Yeah, psychology and sociology weaponized.
Yeah.
And more. Yeah.
Yeah. Quickly, before we go, was it the last chapter, Freud?
The last chapter is Freud.
Dewey.
Yes.
No.
I knew.
Are you using?
I didn't know.
Are
I
you
really,
using
really
the
liked
first
this guy.
edition? Because the real last chapter was Dewey.
Oh, no,
there's a
yeah.
second
We have the
edition.
first. We have the first edition. Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, as I got to the obviously, I was by the time I got to Freud, I thought, oh, I'm definitely good. Well, Marx, it was Marx, then Freud, then the
He does a pretty good analysis of why Marxism is dumb in the book.
And Freud, I mean, 30 pages maybe, but it absolutely validated my opinion, which was
what?
This guy just made this shit up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have to say this, William, this is while you were still on the weekly show, but the one weekend you were on vacation last year, Patrick, one of his first appearances, we did an episode about a book called Concealing the Truth or something. And great book, by the way. And basically the reason why he made that stuff up is because he had a real true theory, which was that all mental illness stems from child molestation.
Right.
And the powers that be said, dude, stop coming at us like that.
Yeah.
Like literally,
Yeah,
he was
that
like,
it was
okay,
a
no
real
problem. I'll
thing.
turn it around completely. It's the kid's fault.
Yeah, and it was based on people actually having those experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Clinically,
so
he was talking
it
to
was true.
every
Yeah.
person he was interviewing in Austria and yes, or Vienna rather. And if you could make the case that maybe it's a sample size issue that all these people in Vienna or whatever, upper class people in Vienna or whatever are getting touched. But here's the thing is that it's remarkable that he did this immediate about face when he presented this theory to the psychological, Congress at the time. And then after he said, no, it's actually the kid's fault for misinterpreting sexual
for
feelings
desiring
about your child. Yes, for your parents.
Yeah, when I first heard about penis envy, I didn't know what a penis looked like.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know what that means. But it's not a sample size problem. It's a self-selection problem. The
Right.
only people who went to see him were people who were fucked up, and that's how you fuck people up.
Well, that's the thing. I think the initial theory of the vast majority. Now, maybe he was saying specifically it's like rape is like what causes all mental instability or whatever. But I would make the case that if you look at like what today's popular mental issues are, they're all like molestation and or molestation adjacent traumas that could happen to a young person, and then that carries into their adulthood. So it's actually despicable that he like was like, oh yeah, I just want to have a career and I don't care about the truth at all.
That theory explains why he rigidly policed his own theories.
Yes.
When they came out.
What's happening now, in my observation, is what children are seeing on the screens. It's very, very hard to screen it out. Like it's getting a little easier, but when my kids were young, you couldn't. I have seen kids get absolutely traumatized. I actually think I saw someone get trigger autism at the age of 9 by stumbling upon some graphic and maybe like not, maybe violent or whatever sex on in YouTube
Sure.
or whatever. So when you have, and when you look at TikTok and you see this hypersexualization of girls where they're, my theory, like the porn
Object
for,
versus subject.
yeah,
Yeah.
porn for girls is being the object, but I think it's so developmentally backwards. I don't think kids can handle,
Yeah.
it looks like violence. And I think that is like molestation.
I think there's a lot of touching going on still too. That's the other thing, and that was a big part of that book too. I remember the title. It's "Suppression of the Truth" is the title of the book.
Wow.
But I think here's my thing: is like it's just one of the key things he's talking about in the book is like the reason why Freud backed away from that was because he didn't realize just how prevalent touching was at the time, and I think the author and I agree on this is that like it's still
No way.
way more
Yeah.
prevalent than we want to talk about. And it's just so harmful to as normal people who haven't been touched or touch. It's so psychically damaging to go, yeah, that's so prevalent. Oh my God. It's such a massive epidemic that's going on consistently, centuries long, and nobody's addressing it at all. It's been literally, it's monetized. It's literally the government makes money off of it. The
What do you
CIA
mean?
sells child porn and
yeah.
snuff films and stuff.
And one of the biggest
And children.
And children.
Yes.
You know,
And-
that
yeah.
there was the last time they put sanctions on Russia was because Russia banned Russian orphans from being exported.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
A big thing
What
that
assholes.
I think people don't understand about that is it's not just neurosis, it's an inability, just like porn does it and the TikTok and everything. It creates an inability to have a normal relationship. It undermines family going forward. But in your own family, like when it happens in your family, which is where a lot of times it happens, then there's a secret and a weirdness. But then in the future, it's very
You
hard
won't have
for
a real family. Yeah.
people. You can't do that. Like, so you see the wire fuzzy monkey thing where like a wire monkey, their babies can't make babies, but a fuzzy, a fake fuzzy monkey with a bottle sticking out of it, that their babies can make babies. If you're not, you don't have the right. You don't know that one? It's
I haven't heard of that one. That's insane.
there's a bunch of, so they have 4 rooms, they have 4 babies monkeys, and they have a wire monkey, they have a fur covered wire monkey with the bottle sticking out. The third one is a fur one on a swing, and then they have a real monkey. And the wire monkey, those babies, when they try to have babies, they throw them against the wall, they fucking eat their brains and stuff. The furry one, they can function, but they cannot be good parents. The one on the string, the furry monkey on the string, is almost exactly the same as the real monkey. Like those kids are just like, this is great. That's all I needed was to just like feel movement and hugging. But if you don't have a normal, like nurturing childhood, you cannot be a good parent. And that's, I'm sure, it's very clear when like people who are molest their kids.
Yeah.
But there's more to it than that. And it is undermining. And I'm sure it leads to sexual deviance.
Well,
things that are obvious.
it's exacerbated by the fact that they don't have to molest their kids. They can just go online on Discord and go, "Hey, kid, I was just like you 7 years ago when I was confused about my sexuality.
Yeah, my
Here,
kids
look
have
at this
been
weird stuff."
tricked to meet people. Not, they haven't gone through with it, but I've had my kids say, this person, her mother died and she's like on a bus and she needs she wants me to meet her and buy her a cup of coffee. I'm like, that's a 40-year-old guy. Like, no, 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 no. And they're like, but I don't want to ghost her because she's really like, what the fuck? So they get lured as well as just exposed online. They get lured into real life situations as well.
Yeah.
Gosh, where did this happen? Where did this come from? Postmodernism.
We talk about Freud. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Right, Freud. Yeah, because if it was true, like all of your anxiety and everything does not come from sex. A lot of it would come from food and like fear. Like my dog is neurotic because
I don't
want
to sound anti-Semitic, but like, bro, leave your mommy issues like with yourself. Like, dude, not everybody is a like neurotic Jewish cokehead. Like, I'm sorry, you can't just make up this insane perverted worldview and be like, yeah, that's everybody.
The other really
Everyone's
horrible
right. The
thing
difference
about
between
Freud is that because he was so popular, everybody's not. If you're just like distracted by all the pornography you watch and kind of, generally a Kaczynski and stressed out person on antidepressants, you go, oh well, I've got ADHD. I can't pay attention to anything. No, you haven't. You're living a fucked up life, and it's just or like everybody's autistic. But I get people
think
say
it's the
I'm
food.
autistic, and it's
I think it's the food doing that.
Well,
yeah, it's crazy. But like, I mean, I know there are autistic kids about, and you can tell them by the way they walk. But
On their toes,
yeah, but like especially boys get labeled with it, and it's just because they've got masculine characteristics. They're good at maths or something, or
and they're blunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from Yorkshire.
Yeah, there you go.
Speaking specifically at ADHD, that is you're a boy in school. That's what it is.
Oh, that's
I have
outrageous.
Poster boy for ADHD as a kid.
Yeah, and that's artificial. But
I was one of the first patients who got Adderall.
My husband got Ritalin when he was. I mean, we're a lot older than you. So the and I think it's because his mom worked, and she couldn't She had to just leave him in school, and he had to be good in school. And then
I just hated school.
He went to a school for like remedial kids. He went to school with Downs kids. And this is a guy I met in graduate school. But anyway, so they definitely just don't like kids who need to run around. But I wanted to make a point about Freud saying why people loved him. I think the timing was right. It was World War I or whatever. And people wanted to break out, just like the Renaissance thing and the plague or whatever. Yeah. And by telling them, like, I think maybe Calvin or whatever saying, or some of the past guys discussed in our book here, that if you there's no choice, you can only be what you are, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. When Freud tells you can only be like a neurotic pervert, like, just don't even worry about it, because that's human nature.
Guess I'm a neurotic pervert.
Yeah. Let's get it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get a bag of cocaine and have a party.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing to do. Like, it justifies it. And look, everybody's gonna, get a pack of cocaine and have a party once in a while, but you need to know it's not good.
Yeah, as long as there's not jelly and ice cream at the party as well.
Well, it'll just go to waste.
Very happy to not get that. Very, very happy that I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just saying that these perverts have.
Jelly's not a treat. Ice cream and cookies and puppies.
Right. Well, we're a war-torn nation. Jelly and ice cream.
Yeah. No, jelly.
Boiled cow's feet and sugar mixed.
Yeah. Yep. My grandmother, the orphan, used to get an orange for Christmas, but I'm wondering, and she got jelly. Jelly was a treat. Yeah, that's right.
Nice.
I'm not sure I believe the orange.
Orange, solid gift. Let's be real.
It is, but like, wouldn't you die if you only had like one piece of fruit once a year?
Yeah, I'm a daily fruit eater.
Yeah. All right. Now we're really getting off. Anything else? This guy's got to go to work.
I've got to go to work.
Okay.
Wrap it up.
Monica, what do you want to promote?
What do I want to probe? I don't know. I was on Tinfoil Hats. People said it was a banger. That was a recent episode.
Oh, that's Sam Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, sweet.
And I'm in this like war-torn Altadena, and I've been a bit distracted. I continue to soldier on with the Monica Perez Show and put out some good stuff. I just had an interview with Daniel Estelin, who wrote, was the OG of Tavistock research.
Yeah.
That was a great one. I've just finished The Makers of the Modern Mind, that I read to my peeps. And I do a really great news show with Hervoy Morich and Parallel Mike called Cognitive Dissidence. And I would say that's the best show I've ever done.
Sweet. Well, and so listeners, read this book. Makers of the Modern Mind by
Yeah. By listening to
whatever it's
Monica read it to you.
yeah. Listen
You
to
can do that.
Monica's show.
I have
Yeah.
little fun quips, but it's only if you have other things to do and you want to
Yeah.
do it while getting a little education. And it's very
Yeah.
fun. And I intentionally insert quips and whatever so that to keep it from being too drony so that you can remember and digest what you've just
Sure.
read.
Yeah. No, brilliant. What a resource.
We're big fans of the Monica Perez program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On
That's
the
very
show.
kind.
We're on board.
That's very kind.
We co-sign it.
And for
We
us,
think, therefore, we like Monica Perez.
yes,
That's excellent.
It's our credo.
Yeah.
But yeah, so www.historyhomos.com for the RSS feed. We're also available on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, Rockfin, and most importantly, historyhomospod.substack.com. Please subscribe over there. If you like the show, it's 100% more show. And I gotta say, the bonus episode we did this past week, me and Patrick did about Benjamin Kyle, the guy who woke up behind a dumpster behind Burger King, and we take it to places you wouldn't have thought. We went full MK Ultra.
Yeah, that's on my playlist.
Far out.
Yeah.
You're trying to think of other stuff you listen to? Yeah, fair enough.
I don't listen to much these days.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah, so please join us over at Substack, historyhomospod.substack.com. It's 100% more show for a monthly fee. And also you got access to talk to the other people about the episodes. It's actually pretty lively commentary over there, which I'm happy to report. But yeah, so that's the best way to support the show. Also, you can follow us across social media at History Homos Pod. And you can join us in our Telegram group at time of recording. Still the friendliest place on the internet. T.me/historyhomos is the channel. T.me/historyhomos chat is the chat. And you can email me with any questions, comments, or concerns. Or if you'd like to purchase a t-shirt, which I'm wearing the fat guy version of right now. Email me at historyhomos@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Die with dignity. William, what do you want to say as your sign off?
God save the Queen.
Later, homos.